What's going on, you guys? It's Andrew back with another video, and today we've got something a little bit different for the channel. Not something I usually do, but today we're going to give it my best shot. So if you guys saw my recent video showing Jordans I had picked up under retail, you would have seen this particular pair of Jordan 3s. It's going to be a lot easier to just hold them. So obviously these are the Air Jordan 3 Chicago All-Star 2020. Nike Air on the back heel, no Nike Shy or anything like that. These aren't the special versions that came out in Chicago only. These are just the standard GR Chicago Jordan 3. So I'm trying to remember if I mentioned it or not, but one of the things I wanted to do with this particular pair of shoes, since I was able to get them under retail, is do a customization. Now there's nothing really wrong with the colorway as is, but I wanted to turn the red uppers into black and make them a black cement Jordan 3. The reason I wanted to do this is because the shape of this particular Jordan 3 is much more true to the original than recent versions of the Jordan 3. Alright you guys, so before we can get started painting this particular pair of shoes, we have to get some materials together. And I don't know about you, but I like to get all my materials ready ahead of time, and this is pretty much all you're going to need. To start out, you're going to need some cotton balls, and you can either use acetone or nail polish remover. I'm using nail polish remover. This is to strip down the finish on top of the shoes, because every pair of shoes from the factory has a fine, clear finish. And you're going to need cotton balls to apply the acetone or nail polish remover. And when we get to that step, you'll see what I mean. Next, very important, you're going to need some masking tape, especially if you haven't done this 1,000 times before. If you're just getting started, even if you're a vet, you're going to want some masking tape. This is just some general purpose masking tape. There's nothing too special about it. It is a little bit thicker. You might want to go with a thinner masking tape based on the features of the shoes, but in this case we're just going to use what we have. And then finally, you're going to need paint brushes and paint. I'm using some matte black acrylic paint, just from the craft store, nothing crazy, just a couple of bucks. You could go the more expensive route and get some Angelus paint. That stuff's amazing. But if you don't have access to Angelus right now, and you just have access to craft store paint, go ahead and use that. We're going to need a little tray to put our paint on, and obviously we're going to need brushes. In this particular case, I think I'm only going to use an angular brush. And then finally, you're going to need some kind of clear coat. I use Krylon. This one's a UV resistant clear coat for acrylic paints. It's going to say on the label acrylic coating. And this one is a matte finish. That's the finish I want to go for. And then this part is optional. If you guys want to speed up the process, you can use a heat gun. This is just a cheap one I got from Harbor Freight, nothing crazy. Obviously the heat comes out of this side, so don't touch that metal when the gun is turned on. This is just to dry the paint in between coats. You can do this if you want to. If you are okay with waiting for the paint to dry, you can do that as well. Like I said, this is totally optional. I like to use it because it speeds up the process, and I don't really like watching paint dry. So let's get started on the Jordan 3s. So our first step is to prep the shoes, and I'm not going to be using this for anything too dramatic. I'm just going to be cutting the lace bag off the side of the shoe there. So with the extra laces out of the way, we're not going to really be using those. Now it's time to get down to taping this shoe. Now fair warning, you guys, this part is extremely tedious, and there's no getting around that. You kind of have to. It's literally one of the most important steps of the entire shoe painting process, aside from, painting it. But you're going to want to make sure you get every part that you don't want paint on. You got to get that covered, because that is going to make or break this little customization of ours. Obviously this part is red, so we're going to want to paint that. Laces are going to get in the way. We got to take the laces out. So that's what you're going to want the shoe to look like before we even start masking it off. And one thing I want to point out before we get any further into the customization, some of you may have already noticed, but the eyelets here at the bottom are black. On the Black Cement 3s, the eyelets are actually red. I think what I'm going to do, honestly, because this is kind of like a trial for me, I think what I'm going to do is just leave them black. And if down the road I want to paint them red, I'll just get some red paint and try my best. Now that we have the laces out, we can go ahead and start masking off the parts we don't want paint on. And this part sucks. I'm just going to warn you guys right now, this part is so annoying. But what you have to understand, painting a sneaker is only as effective as your prep work. So if your prep work is sloppy, if your tape job is sloppy, the paint job is going to come out sloppy no matter what you did. Just make sure you use as much caution as you can when painting, and then the tape is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of stress. Now I'm going to speed up this part because it took me a few moments. It took me a few minutes to even tape that part. So I'm just going to skip to the part where the shoe's already taped up. Alright, you guys, so I didn't exactly time myself, but this is where we are at with the tape job. If I mentioned how tedious this was before, after doing it entirely on the upper of one shoe, I'm not looking forward to that one. Not one bit. There were a couple of spots where the material overlaps itself a little bit, so I was able to use my fingernail and just tuck the tape in there. The sock liner is a bit resistant to the adhesion of the of the tape, so that's a lot of fun. And then in some spots, like this little nook here, I've had to go in with an X-Acto knife and very, very carefully slice off any extra tape. But for the most part, it's not looking too bad. Let's get started on the actual removal of the finisher. Alright, you guys, so for this step, we're going to take our masked up shoe, take our nail polish remover, and cotton balls. And we're going to very carefully, because we don't want a whole lot of runoff here, we're going to very carefully remove the finisher that comes on the shoe from the factory. So, not putting a whole lot of pressure on the shoe here, because I just want to very carefully remove that surface finisher. After waiting a few seconds, letting it dry, it's going to feel a little bit different on each side. You're going to feel a slight difference. Nothing crazy, just a slight difference. This is why I say prep work is very important. You guys can see a slight color bleeding. If we've made it all the way through the clear finisher, we're going to see a little bit of red on the cotton ball. Nothing crazy, just a little bit. This is why I say that prep work is everything, because if we started to see some color bleed and it got on the elephant print, our job just became much harder. So for those of you who don't know why we have to follow this very important step, it's because the paint needs a surface to cling onto in order to stay on the spot where we paint. If we were to just take a paintbrush and start painting on top of the factory finish, that paint is not going to last. For that reason, we need to cover the surface with the nail polish remover or acetone, whatever you have available, to make sure that we have a strong surface the paint can bond onto. Now that we've got the surface totally prepped for paint, this is the annoying part. We're going to have to take the tape off and start retaping the shoe, covering the spots we don't want paint on. The reason we do that is because the adhesive removing power of the nail polish remover or acetone is going to make this tape weaker. It's not going to stick to the surface the same way we needed it to, and that's going to give us problems when we go to paint. One thing I want to point out as well, no matter how good your tape work is, you may have some touch-ups to do after it's all said and done, and that is totally fine. Everybody who customizes sneakers, whether they've done it professionally or if you're like me and you're an amateur, you're going to have some spots where you need to do some touch-ups. So be prepared for that. And don't be upset with yourself if you need to do some touch-ups. For a lot of us, this is a learning process, and this is why I'm making this video, to kind of help you guys along. Let's retape and get started on painting. Alright, you guys, so this is the exciting part of this custom. This is the part where we start laying down our paint. So I like to get like a healthy amount of paint on the tray ready to go, and then it gets time to pick what paint brushes you're going to use. I typically suggest a thin angular brush. In this case, neither of these are thin or angular. Well, these are thin but not angular. For the wide areas, what I'm going to want to do to get some nice even coverage is use this wide flat brush. Yeah, pretty much what I'm going to do. For the fine detailed areas, I'm going to use this super thin, super pointed paintbrush, and then we're just going to see how it goes. I'm going to take it step by step and go from there, guys. One very important step I forgot to mention, have a glass of water nearby. In case you get dehydrated, but also to clean off the brushes as you use them. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I am quite nervous, just because I have not done something like this before. But there's only one way to get started, and that's to jump right into it. So I don't exactly know how many coats are needed or are going to be needed for this custom, but I'm going to assume about 3 to 4. But what we're going to do is we're going to do light coats and kind of just go in a back and forth pattern like this. I'm going to stay away from the edges for right about now, just because I want to go in with a more detailed brush, and then we'll see how it goes. We're going to do light even coats, brush moving back and forth like so, and then little by little we're going to get better coverage that way. So what you don't want is too heavy of a first coat, because then the rest of it's going to look, well, mediocre at best. Alright, so I've gone ahead and skipped to where I laid down the third coat, and honestly, I think I'm pretty happy with the results. I was thinking maybe it might need a fourth coat, but really it's just some detail work, and then once I'm done with the detail work, it's time to spray on the matte finisher. And I'm going to skip ahead to that part right now. Alright, so I taped off the rest of the shoe as best as I could, and we're going to spray this outside because this stuff smells terrible. So after we went ahead and sprayed the Krylon matte finisher, I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off. Alright, so tape aside, I'm actually a little shocked how good this looks. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was very nervous. I didn't think I'd be able to actually do this successfully. So I say successfully, seeing several different flaws. So obviously on the panel here, there's some black paint that chipped off. We're gonna have to go ahead and fix that somehow. This is exactly why I said that prep work is so important, because I was able to go ahead and paint most of the panels no problem, because I didn't have a lot to worry about in terms of paint spilling over on the sides. A couple of spots here along the side here that need to be touched up. We're going to take a very fine brush and actually touch all those spots up, and then sort out a way to resolve that paint runoff. But honestly, for a custom sneaker, my first real custom sneaker, like, it's not really much of a custom, it's just black cement Jordan 3 colorway on the Chicago All-Star Jordan 3. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm very happy with this, actually. Before I even do the touch-up work, you guys can see this is the before and after right here. Honestly, I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. Super happy about this, and I can't wait to get started on this one. That's kind of the annoying part about painting shoes. Once you do one, you have to do the other. So all the steps you took first time have to be repeated, but I'm super happy with how these turned out. So it is what it is. So right now I'm just waiting for this one to dry. I sprayed the matte finisher on there already. Went ahead and didn't put any tape down when I painted it, and honestly I like the results a lot better than when I had put some tape down. But that's where I'm going to wrap up the video on this first custom on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I definitely had a lot of fun doing this. It was a great way to kill time today. I didn't really have anything else going on, so I figured I might as well put this little project into the works. Getting a little up close look for you guys there. You can see the matte finisher put a low shine on the paint, and honestly I'm very, very happy with the results. Like I said, I love the black cement Jordan 3. I really, really love the Jordan 3 as a whole, and I'm really glad I got the Chicago colorway under retail, so I felt pretty comfortable going ahead and doing this. Thought about this idea for a couple weeks, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, so I'm going to call this one a win. I'm really glad to have these in the collection in their black cement form. So I'll do a little update, see how these hold up. If you enjoyed this custom, hit that like button, and of course subscribe for more content. Until next time, guys, this is Andrew signing off. Peace.